Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into a truly fascinating and ancient system of thought from India called Sāṃkhya. Now, at its core, Sāṃkhya is trying to solve a problem that, let's be honest, we all face: human suffering. And it offers a pretty radical path to freedom, not through faith, but through knowledge. So let's just start right there with that feeling. I mean, have you ever felt that? That weird tension where part of you seems to be just watching, well, the rest of you is completely swept up in the day-to-day drama, the stress, the happiness, the worry. Sāṃkhya philosophy kicks off by looking directly at this very universal, very human sense of inner conflict. In fact, one of the main texts, the Sāṃkhya Karika, says the whole reason we even start doing philosophy is because of what it calls threefold misery. Basically, this is suffering that comes from ourselves, suffering that comes from other beings, and suffering that comes from the natural world. So right from the get-go, this isn't just some abstract thought experiment. It's a practical quest to solve a really fundamental human problem. So what's Sāṃkhya's big diagnosis for all this misery? Well, it's surprisingly simple but incredibly profound. It's a case of mistaken identity. The entire philosophy argues that our suffering comes from a deep, fundamental misunderstanding of who, or maybe what, we actually are. And this right here is the absolute heart of it. The philosophy calls our predicament bondage. But we're not talking about physical chains. No, this is an internal bondage, and it's created by one single, powerful, false belief. The belief that our true self is the one doing all the thinking, all the feeling, and all the acting. Sāṃkhya's radical idea is that the real you, well, it's something else entirely. So to untangle this cosmic identity crisis, the system lays out a pretty radical dualism. It splits everything, and I mean everything in reality, into two completely distinct fundamental categories. And getting a handle on this split is really the first big step towards freedom. So let's meet the two main characters in this cosmic drama: Purusha, which we can call the watcher, and Prakriti, the show. Everything that exists, from a tiny thought to a massive galaxy, is going to fall into one of these two buckets. And looking at them side by side makes the difference crystal clear. On one side, you've got Purusha. This is pure consciousness. It's totally inactive, it never changes, it's just the eternal subject, the seer. And this part is really important. Sāṃkhya says there isn't just one Purusha, there are tons of them, a plurality of individual selves. Then, on the other side, you have Prakriti. This is the single, unified source of all matter, all energy, the whole shebang. It's everything that can be an object of consciousness: our bodies, our thoughts, the physical universe. It's the scene. And it's always active, always changing, always evolving. Here's a really great way to get your head around this. Think of your true self, your Purusha, as the consciousness sitting in a movie theater. And Prakriti? That's the movie playing on the screen, with all the drama, the characters, the action, the emotional ups and downs. According to Sāṃkhya, suffering is what happens when you, the moviegoer, get so sucked into the film that you forget you're just watching it. You start to think you are the character on screen, and you feel every punch and every heartache as if it were really happening to you. There's this classic analogy from Sāṃkhya that just perfectly explains how these two interact. Picture this. Purusha, pure consciousness, is like a man who can see perfectly but can't walk. And Prakriti, all of active matter, is like a strong man who can walk anywhere but is completely blind. Separately, they're kind of stuck. But when the seer climbs onto the shoulders of the doer, they can navigate the world together. Consciousness directs and matter acts. This partnership, this union, is what creates all experience and allows for evolution to happen. Okay, so if Prakriti is the show, the movie on the screen, what's the film actually made of? How does this one primordial substance create such an unbelievable variety of things and experiences? Well, the answer lies in what Sāṃkhya calls the three gunas. They're like the very threads from which reality itself is woven. You can think of Prakriti as a rope that's been braided from three different strands, or gunas. First, you've got sattva. This is the quality of clarity, of light, of harmony. Think about that feeling of a perfectly calm, focused mind. That's sattva. Then you have rajas. This is the principle of activity, passion, and movement. It's that restless energy that drives us to get things done, but it also causes stress. And finally, there's tamas. This is the quality of inertia, of darkness, of heaviness. It's that feeling of being sluggish, confused, or just plain stuck. Now, what's just fascinating is that even though these forces are constantly pulling in different directions, they somehow cooperate. The text gives us this beautiful analogy of a lamp. You've got the oil, the wick, and the flame. They are all totally different things, right? But they work together to produce light. In the exact same way, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas all collaborate for one big dual purpose, to create a world of experience for Purusha and ultimately to provide the very means for its freedom. So just think of these gunas as cosmic ingredients. Before the universe began, they were in a state of perfect balance. But when that equilibrium gets disturbed by the presence of Purusha, that's when evolution kicks off. Every single thing in the universe, a rock, an idea, a feeling of joy, is nothing more than a unique recipe, a different mix of these three gunas. So this brings us, finally, to the solution. If all this suffering is just one big case of mistaken identity, how do we fix it? How do we untangle the watcher from the show and reach what Sāṃkhya calls liberation? The key, the absolute master key, is a special kind of knowledge called viveka. You can translate it as discriminative wisdom. And listen, this isn't about memorizing flashcards. It's a deep, direct, unshakable realization, the ability to see clearly, in every single moment, the difference between the knower, Purusha, and everything that is known, Prakriti, and that includes your own thoughts and feelings. The Sāṃkhya Karika uses this incredibly powerful analogy. Our bondage is like an actor who gets so lost in a role that they completely forget who they are off stage. They start to genuinely feel the character's pain and joy as their own. Viveka, then, is that sudden moment of clarity, right there on stage, when the actor remembers, wait a minute, this isn't me. I'm the one playing this part. The drama is still happening, but it's not the totality of my being. This beautiful quote captures what happens next. Prakriti is like a dancer, and her whole purpose is to put on a show for the audience, which is Purusha. But once the audience has truly seen the performance for what it is, once consciousness truly understands the nature of the show, the dance has served its purpose. For that one specific Purusha, the show stops. And this is such a critical point. Liberation in Sāṃkhya isn't about blowing up the world or escaping to another dimension. The world, Prakriti, it just keeps on dancing for all the other consciousnesses that are still absorbed in the show. Freedom is a purely internal shift. It's the realization that your true identity as the witness was never and could never have been trapped in the first place. You are always free. This quote really nails that final decisive moment. It's like a mutual recognition. The spirit, Purusha, thinks I've seen her, and nature, Prakriti, thinks I've been seen. At that exact point, the entire reason for their partnership, the engine that drove billions of years of experience, just dissolves. For that one spirit, the play is over. But you know, this radical split leaves us with a huge philosophical puzzle. I mean, if Purusha, our true self, is just a passive witness, then who is actually doing anything? Who's making choices? Sāṃkhya's answer is pretty jarring. It suggests that what we call free will is actually a feature of Prakriti, of our mind and body, that our consciousness just mistakenly identifies with. And that raises some really deep questions about things like moral responsibility, and it's a problem philosophers have wrestled with for centuries. So let's bring all this home. What can this incredibly ancient philosophy really offer us today, living in our modern world that's just buzzing with constant activity and information? Let's do a quick recap of the big ideas. Number 1, suffering comes from a fundamental case of mistaken identity. 2, our true self isn't the doer, it's the silent, unchanging witness. 3, the whole world of our experience is just an endless dance between 3 basic forces, the gunas. And finally, freedom isn't about escaping the world, but about a deep shift in knowledge that separates the real you from the show. And so, I want to leave you with a final question to think about. Consider all the roles you play every single day. The student, the employee, the parent, the friend. Where in your life do you get so lost in playing the part that you forget you are the actor behind it all? Sāṃkhya would suggest that just exploring that question is the very first step on the path to finding your true and eternally free self.